Hi, everyone. This week, we're going to talk about the B vitamins. Last week and the week before, we've been talking a lot about genetic defects. We've been talking about trauma-informed body work. But now we got a lot of questions about what actually are the B vitamins and what are their active forms. So I have my guest again, Dr. Ricky Miller. We'll talk about him at the end again. So I am Dr. Mary Balliat, and I was the dean. I'm a professor emeritus. I've been retired after 30 years from teaching biochem and physiology and nutrition, and I've done a lot of research. So I think at this point we kind of know. So who are these B vitamins? They are the water-soluble vitamins, and they are 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 12. So that begs the question, Dr. Ricky, what is the question?
How did these vitamins get the name B?
So what happened was back in the day when they were discovering the vitamins, they found vitamin A. And then because it's fat soluble, so they extracted the vitamins that were fat soluble first, and A was the one they could figure out. And then all the B vitamins were together, and then they started breaking them down. And then they named them in the order that they were able to extract them from the water. And unfortunately, and you can go to this website, 4, 8, 10, and 11 turned out not to be vitamins. And so they were like, oops, not a vitamin. And so vitamins are really specific because they are coenzymes in reactions. That's what makes you a vitamin. And these are the names of all the vitamins. So B1 is thiamine, 2 riboflavin, 3 niacin, 5 pantothenic acid, 6 pyridoxine, 7 biotin. Almost nobody uses that number. 9 folate and then 12 cobalamin.
So
So
as a coenzyme
yes, go ahead.
as a coenzyme, does that mean that has to be present for a reaction to happen?
Yes. So what happens is enzymes cannot work by themselves. They either need a coenzyme, which is made from a B vitamin or vitamin C, and something else. So we are going to talk about what's called the active forms. So these are the things you might take in your vitamins if you're taking a multivitamin, but then your liver is going to have to make them active, kind of like your home and in your jammies, but then you got to go to work and maybe you're a police officer and you got to put on your uniform that takes something. Same idea. So you actually have to become active duty. You're a firefighter. Could you go to a fire in your pajamas?
I never did, but
No.
that'd be exciting.
Cannot. So you got to make the active forms. So these are not the active forms. They have to be converted in your liver. So your liver has to be in really great shape. All right, so I'm doing B7 first because nobody uses that number. It is biotin, and everybody thinks hair, skin, and nails. However, if you look at this list from an actual biochem page, nowhere on here does this say hair, skin, and nails. Not true at all. If we look here, this lipid means fat. This propionic acid is a fat. This is an amino acid or from protein. This is amino acids and glucose, and this is glucose. So that carbohydrates, proteins, and fat are all of them need biotin. And so because my skin has all those things in it, it uses glucose for energy, but your skin has fat in it, has protein in it, and so therefore you need biotin. So they took one little thing, but really it does a million things for you. So I did that first because everybody else more or less rhymes. So let's talk about the next group. You always want to have all the B vitamins together, and that's because they work together. This is a really cool enzyme called pyruvate dehydrogenase. And that enzyme, and there's another one in the Krebs cycle called alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase, and it needs all of these vitamins. And the Krebs cycle makes energy for you. So, well, not directly, but it's part of the energy process. And so the mnemonic is B1, B2, B3, energy. And then it also needs B5. So B1, the active form is this, thiamine pyrophosphate. B2, the active form is flavin adenine dinucleotide. B3, the active form is niacinamide adenine dinucleotide. And B5, which is pantothenic acid, the active form is coenzyme A. What do you got to say, Dr. Ricky, about this?
Well, did you say that I need all of these for this to work? I can't just have one? That seems pretty
Exactly.
important.
Do you see how one thing goes to the next? Here's the difference. This is a team effort, right? Can you play baseball by yourself?
Not well.
What are you going to do? You can throw the ball up and down in the air, right? You can go in a batting cage, but that is not the game.
Mm-mm.
That's what we always have to remember. The game is played with the team. It's a team sport. B vitamins are a team sport. Making energy is a team sport. Everybody's got to show up together. So if I'm deficient in any one of these, then the whole thing is going to slow down because I'm not doing my reaction and I got to pass things along to be able to go down the stream. And so it's a real problem if you don't have it.
Yeah, it's become very vogue to get shots of a single B vitamin
Yes,
lately,
we're going
or
to
infusions of a single B vitamin lately.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. That's coming up. All right. So we said 1, 2, 3, energy, MB5, and 6, 9, 12, the methylators, doesn't rhyme. So the methylation cycle, which is super interesting, it's called 1-carbon metabolism. But we see that we have this thing called the folate cycle and this thing called the methionine cycle. And then we see this where we have the mitochondria that is interrelated with the Krebs cycle. So let's think about this. This is where 1, 2, 3 energy. This is B12. It's super interesting how it's all related. So again, we want to take them all together. Now, what's interesting is that these B9, folate, and B12, which we'll see is cobalamin, and B6, these are all really important. So those wheels turn because those wheels have to turn and be able to do all these reactions. But it's way more complicated than this. So we're going to see that in a minute on a slide. But even when we say 6, 9, 12, the methylators, truthfully, when we look at the folate metabolism, it takes way more vitamins than just folate and B2. But this is here's B2, like it's doing something else. And it wasn't even just doing energy. So that's what's really important. So again, your mitochondria is super, super important to make energy. And it's very dependent actually on these, the methylators as well. So B6 is one of them. It has to become the active form called pyridoxal 5-phosphate or pyridoxal phosphate. So there's a phosphate molecule, and this is pyridoxal phosphate. And it just happens to be on carbon number 5, and that's why it's called pyridoxal 5-phosphate. But when you take a B vitamin, it usually is either pyridoxine or pyridoxal, which is this. And in order to go over here, you also need this enzyme to make the active form. This is a magnesium-dependent enzyme, and this, intriguingly, is a zinc-dependent enzyme. So you need zinc, and you need magnesium, and you need this, NAD, which is B3. So even though we say B6, you actually need B3 to make the active form. You need zinc to make the active form. You need magnesium. And so when I take a vitamin that has pyridoxine in it, I still got to do all this other stuff, and it needs my liver to be working really, really well. And because that's where this is happening. So if I have COMT, we had a video about that, I'm going to have a little trouble making pyridoxal 5-phosphate. And what if I don't have phosphate? What if I don't eat a lot of meat, which has a lot of phosphate in it? It's a protein. And an interesting thing, coffee has a lot of phosphate, and anything that has phosphoric acid in it has that in there. So that could be why you feel a little bit better. And why the literature on coffee is good. Unless you have COMT, and then it's one more thing to do. So what does B9 or folic acid, what is the deal with folic acid metabolism? Well, what happens is that the reason they put folic acid in most supplements and in fortified foods like cereal and rice, well, rice is a cereal, but so grains and so anything I have like that, they're all fortified foods. Because when I take off the whole thing, like I didn't eat whole wheat or I didn't eat brown rice, I lost these. They naturally were there, but I took them off. Now I got to add them back. And that's how they actually figured it out. They gave chickens way back in the day, what's called polished rice. They took off the outside of the rice, the bran, and chickens got beriberi. And that you get numbness in your extremities in beriberi. That's the deficiency of thiamine. And so we can always remember that I have beriberi numb thighs when I'm B1 deficient. So it's very bad for your nerves to eat unfortified cereals. So that's anything that you make a cereal from, like rice Chex, corn Chex, wheat Chex, oat Chex. That's how you can remember who the cereals are. But folic acid is very stable. So that's why they put it in the supplements. Now, what happens is that the minute that you absorb dietary folic acid, it actually becomes folate in your intestines. And that's why they say folic acid is in the supplements, but then it says dietary folate, meaning I put it in there. So folate most famously came in spinach. And so that's where the word folate came from, because of spinach. But look at how many things that folate has to be. This is called dihydrofolate, tetrahydrofolate, 10-formyl tetrahydrofolate, and 5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolate, or methanol, and then methylene. And then finally, the most famous of all enzyme defects, MTHFR. I make 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate if I'm the 60% of people who do not have MTHFR. I, however, have MTHFR, as 40% of us do. And so we never ever do this step. We just kind of do all this other stuff, and we just never ever go here. And then this can go back to this, but I didn't make it anyway. So I'm going to do all this other stuff. And I'm going to be very, very involved in DNA synthesis and protein synthesis and lipid metabolism. But I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get rid of this guy here called homocysteine, which is the thing that's a bad guy for coronary artery disease and for cancer and for arthritis and all that. For those of us who have MTHFR, we have to use what's called methyl B12, because we can't use the methyl group from tetrahydrofolate and put it on the methionine, so we get rid of the homocysteine. But so I don't really see the need to, if you don't have the enzyme and then I take methylfolic acid, methyl tetrahydrofolate, then I'm coming in with a methyl group here, but I already have a methyl group. If I have them both methylated, they're just going to bang into each other, because notice this does not have methyl on it here. This does. They both can't have it, or this wheel won't turn. And so then this is just, it just doesn't work out. It's not how the game is played. Dr. Ricky, what did most patients ask you about folate and folic acid?
Well, I hear a lot. Is my supplement any good if it has folic acid in it? Will it still give me what I need? Short answer is yes.
The short answer is yes, because folic acid has hydrogen on it and folate doesn't. Still the same person, still can do all my jobs. Hydrogen, folic acid, no hydrogen, folate. In your body, it always gives up its hydrogen. In your body, the minute you put folic acid in, it always becomes folate. That's the take-home message. That's all I want everyone to get, is that folic acid becomes folate in your body. Okay, so I know a lot of people, that's because there's TikTok people who think folic acid is not going to turn into dietary folate. Ah. All right, what about B12? There are multiple active forms of B12. They naturally occur in foods if I eat animal products. So you must have bacteria that work on animal products. So fermented dairy, or I have aged beef, or chicken's just been hanging out. It has B12 on it. It just has to be an animal product that had bacteria on it, which is pretty much everything. And so that's what's interesting. So definitely more naturally occurring B12 in, say, yogurt than there would be in fluid milk. Then we're going to turn that into this thing in our liver called hydroxycobalamin, which then will become the bioactive things, either methylcobalamin or adenosylcobalamin. We need both. Methylcobalamin is going to be the one that's going to get rid of the danger molecule, homocysteine, but adenosylcobalamin is very, very important in order for branched chain amino acids actually to be able to make hemoglobin. So we need both of those, and that's why we're going to give up our methyl group in cobalamin and give it to homocysteine. We're going to be left with adenosylcobalamin, and then I can make hemoglobin. So it's just kind of cool. But in the majority of supplements who don't want to pay the extra money, then they put cyanocobalamin in it. But the problem is cyano means cyanide, and so that can cause cyanide poisoning. Did you know that, Dr. Ricky?
I did, actually. Cyanide is also very prevalent in firefighting and can get in your body and poison you as a byproduct of combustion and things like that.
And so what do they teach you when you're a firefighter about cyanide poisoning? What do you do to get rid of it?
Well, first of all, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So you always wear your mask during the fire and during the cleanup, because all the smoke and all the byproducts are extremely toxic. And then we actually would try to sweat things out. That was back before I knew much about nutrition and liver and things like that, but we would try to sweat it out, our cyanide. But
That's
it does make you feel sick, so sick.
Yeah, cyanide binds irreversibly to your hemoglobin, and so you can't carry oxygen. And so you're not getting enough oxygen. And your nerves are very oxygen dependent, as is your heart. So it seems like a problem. So why not cyanocobalamin? So does it look like some of these things when you were getting cyanide
Oh,
there?
so much. And so many of the guys, it was like it was almost like fire flu. Like after we would have a good burner for about 3 days, it felt like everyone had the flu. It was just, it felt awful. This list is perfect. That's exactly what it feels like. And
Yeah.
I would add being super tired to that, but maybe that was just fighting the fire.
No. Tired, you don't get enough oxygen. So you
Mhm.
are tired. That makes
Yeah.
total sense, right? And what I'm interested in is for those of us who do body work, look at that low back pain there, right? That's super interesting. Or people are coming in and they're congested all the time, and you think, what am I allergic to? It could be this, right? And so it's really interesting. So I really like that you called it what, fire flu?
Yeah, fire flu. Like every time after a fire, there'd be days where you just feel awful.
Even though you had the mask on and you were doing all that. Now that's high dose, but let's just say I'm thinking I'm doing myself a favor and I'm doing one of these things. What
Hmm.
products have cyanocobalamin in it? Most multivitamins, you have to read the label. And if it just says cobalamin or it just says B12, it's likely cyanocobalamin. It's very likely, unless it says methylcobalamin, you have to just pretty much be sure that it is that. A lot of vegan things, because vegans don't get B12, it's only in animal products. And so they'll add it, but unfortunately, as cyanocobalamin. And then Dr. Ricky, what'd you notice when you were at your conference?
Oh boy, there was a lot of energy drinks floating around, like a lot. And it just so happens that the dosage in an energy drink is pretty high.
Yeah, not maybe as high as the fire, but
Yeah, maybe not that high, but depends on how many you drink too. A lot of people don't just drink one energy drink.
that's a great point, actually. Not just one, right? They can't just have one. So if this is not making them feel that good, what what's causing them to feel better on the energy drink? What else does it have in there that's giving them the energy then?
Well, I I was really impressed to find out that caffeine and adrenaline uh look a lot alike, right? Which I thought was crazy because so many people are already cranked out on adrenaline and then they just guzzle some more every time they need a little bit of energy.
Yeah, it's because I think what happens is, like, say you're go, right? And you spent all your adrenaline. Now you just want to drink it because you can't make it.
I can't make it. Yeah.
That's why it's called adrenal fatigue, because you can't make enough adrenaline. So now you're just fatigued and now you're just drinking caffeine that it acts like adrenaline because it looks like adrenaline. So it has a really interesting thing. So I want to thank my guest, Dr. Ricky Miller, who
Thank you.
is a specializing in trauma-informed body work. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He is a chiropractor. He was a firefighter. And so he knows a lot about trauma and cyanide. So he is my guest on this. So very cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. So we're just going to end this, and let me just get that done. And thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.